There's a major development to tell you about this afternoon, and the investigation focused on Donald Trump's business practices, the one being conducted by the Manhattan DA. Last hour, a spokesperson confirmed to NBC News that the two top prosecutors with leading roles in the case have resigned from that office. New York Times, citing two people familiar with the discussions, adds this, quote, without new Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg's commitment to move forward, the prosecutors late last month postponed a plan to question at least one witness before the grand jury. One of the people said they have not questioned any witnesses in front of the grand jury for more than a month, essentially pausing their investigation into whether Trump inflated the value of his assets to obtain favorable loan terms from banks. Let's bring in NBC News investigations correspondent Tom Winter, also joining us, MSNBC legal analyst Dan Goldman, former assistant U.S. attorney for SDNY, former lead counsel for the Democrats during Donald Trump's first impeachment trial. Claire's still here. Tom Winter, what do you know?
So I think this is important for a couple of different reasons, Nicole. First off, Kerry Dunn was the prosecutor who led not once but twice this fight for Trump's tax documents and indeed his tax returns through the Supreme Court, and victorious on both occasions, eventually getting those documents. He was the lead prosecutor last July when the charges were dropped against former Trump CFO Alan Weisselberg, as well as the Trump Organization. And he was the one who spoke out in court and went through this whole chronology in detail about the allegations that the office was bringing against them. So Kerry's been kind of the man on the front lines and one of the people spearheading this investigation for quite some time. Mark Pomerantz was an interesting addition to the team because of his experience in white-collar cases and complex financial crimes type cases. We've been told on several occasions that he was one of the primary people who was interviewing witnesses, just in the office and in the course of conducting this investigation. So these are two big names on their own. They're two significant players. They're not the only prosecutors and investigators in this, of course, but they're two significant players. And so I think this is a relevant development. There had not been any activity since the end of late last year when there was a flurry of activity, some of that before the grand jury, we were told. It's not unsurprising that in the first few weeks of the year, as a new district attorney, Alvin Bragg, came into office and would review this case, that there would be a bit of a slowdown. That would be expected. And what was unexpected is that over the past month or so, Nicole, we haven't heard about anybody new being interviewed or any new requests for documents. So that's something that feels newsworthy in light of all this.
Dan Goldman, what do you make of this?
Well, let's take a step back for a second. This was always going to be a very difficult case to prove on the criminal front, right? You need direct knowledge of wrongdoing to show that Donald Trump or someone else made material misrepresentations about their financial documents that were relied on by banks, insurance companies, or tax entities. And the problem in getting to Donald Trump has always been that he doesn't email or text. So you basically need a cooperating witness. And Alan Weisselberg wasn't cooperating. They took a run at him, and he said no. And notwithstanding everything that he has said on Twitter and elsewhere, Michael Cohen is pretty much an unusable witness because he would be subject to such withering cross-examination that his credibility would be so undermined. So we don't know of any potential witness against Donald Trump. And that makes this case very difficult. That all being said, there is something rotten when the two lead prosecutors, both of whom are extremely experienced, seasoned prosecutors and lawyers, publicly resign reportedly because of disagreements with the DA. And to me, the only conclusion I can reach without knowing any more, and we don't know what the evidence is, but to me, it reeks of Kerry Dunn and Mark Pomerantz thinking that there is a case here, and Alvin Bragg, the district attorney, deciding that there is not. Because I can't figure out why else they would resign in this public a way. Certainly, if they agree there wasn't a case, they wouldn't need to resign. And if they were all in agreement that they should be charged, then they wouldn't resign. So clearly there is serious disagreement, and a public resignation by prosecutors is a very, very unusual event.
And Dan Goldman, you make this distinction about this burden in a criminal case. I mean, we covered, I want to say last week, but I'm in the COVID time warp, 3 weeks ago or 2 weeks ago, the developments in the civil case, the Tish James case. And I wonder if it's that in a civil case, the burden of proof is different. I mean, obviously these resignations, or let me ask you this a question. Do these resignations have any bearing on that case?
No. These resignations have no bearing on the Attorney General's civil case. That is running in parallel fashion to the criminal investigation. And it's very easy to think, oh, Letitia James outlined all of these flagrant misrepresentations in her brief, therefore it's criminal. But it doesn't work that way. She clearly has a very strong potential civil case, and that could, do serious damage to the Trump organization. But in a criminal case, you have to show that the individuals knowingly made these misrepresentations. So it's not just enough to show that there were these misrepresentations made. You have to show that particular individuals who were charged knew about them and made them. And so Donald Trump needs to you need to show that he was involved in making these representations. And it's not good enough to just say, oh, he's the boss. Of course he knew. You actually need direct evidence in court, admissible evidence, to be able to show that he did knowingly make those misrepresentations. So this is completely separate, even though the subject matter is very similar. And to me, it's a tailor-made civil case. And if they get some breaks in the criminal side, it could be a provable criminal case. As I said, we don't know the evidence. I have a lot of respect for Mark Pomerantz and Carrie Dunn. I don't think they would do this if there was not good cause. And they clearly think that something is amiss. They think there's more here than what Alvin Bragg is crediting them for crediting in this case.